Hi everyone. Welcome to the second bootcamp of Blue BioValue program. Before we start, I will remind you once again to turn your cameras on, please. The microphones turned off. Use the Zoom chat for quick questions if you have. And always prepare your FabStart Academy account ready to use because everyone is going to talk today. So please open the window of FabStart Academy at the same time that you have the Zoom session. If you have big questions, save it for the working hours. You already know this because we already had working hours this week. Let me introduce you to André Marquet. He will be the trainer for today. So please welcome André Marquet.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks for being with us today. So my name is André Marquet. I'm a trainer here at Fabrica Startups. I have been working with Fabrica for the last almost 8 years, actually, since the Fabrica Startups has been created almost 8 years ago. And I'm a computer scientist myself. I have a master's in telecommunications engineering, and I've been working mostly with Nokia and Huawei and other companies in the telecom space for a good part of my career. And then I've co-founded Beta, which is a well-known startup accelerator here in Portugal. And lately I've been involved with Productized, which is a innovation consulting company. We organize Productized Conference, a leading innovation conference here in Portugal. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID-19, we are moving online, pretty much as we're doing this event here today. So let me just move on to the agenda, because this is bootcamp number 2. This is a bootcamp where we're going to do customer segments and interviews, and we're going to go through a number of topics, including customer development, critical hypothesis, and also exercises. Even before the coffee break, we'll have 10 minutes, quite short coffee break, but then I'll promise to make this session as short as possible. Usually this is a very long one-day session. And what we're doing here today is a 3-hour session instead of an 8-hour session. So I'll try not to speak in ×2 mode, but still make it understandable and easy to grasp. If you have any questions, if you have anything, if you have any doubts, please don't hesitate. Just raise your hands virtually over Zoom, and interrupt me at any time. So after coffee break, we'll be covering the critical hypothesis of your business model canvas. We'll go through hypothesis testing and what it entails, and we'll also have some time to do market segmentation, personas, and then speak about the next steps, which is going to be the Monday working hours or office hours, as you want to call it. And yes, so by 6 local time, we should be done. Wherever you guys are, this is a 3-hour session. Right, so let's start with lessons learned. And for that, I would like to call on our virtual stage 2 teams. The first team would be RIFI, and the second team, Sustainable Now Technology. So RIFI is from the Netherlands, and I believe David is already here with us. Yeah? So let me just
Yes,
get
Daniel
this.
From RIFI.
Actually, Daniel, not David, sorry. So David, Daniel, not David, will be presenting RIFI and their lessons learned, and then we'll be having Sustainable Now Technology. So Daniel, if you can just share your screen and share the lessons learned that you have from your first session, that'll be great. If you have any technical issues, we can move to the next.
Let me just share my screen. Give me one second.
I'll do that. All right, I think we got it. We're seeing your screen.
Perfect.
If you can just maximize the presentation or put it in presentation mode, even better.
Yep, is that good? Can everyone see that, and can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you well.
Okay, perfect. So we're Team RIFI, the guys with the module underwater artificial reef structure. So for the day before, there's really a nice, the lessons learned from the risk exercise, which we already did. And I think the lessons learned, important ones for us, is that thinking on the big picture, just zooming out and just realizing where we need to focus on, what are our main risks, what are our main risk points, and also kind of think about now which controls, what are we doing to mitigate those risks. So we had a couple of, we have one very high one, a couple of high ones there as well. So this made us think, okay, so what are we doing to mitigate those risks? What are we putting in place? What are we, how are we going to make this risks a lot lower for a venture? And another important lesson learned on that one is that mitigating some of these risks required just a longer run period. So okay, we need to in order for a prototype especially to work, it's kind of like we need some experiments which require a certain runway, and then after the experiments we have a pilot project which is also another kind of runway. So putting these strategies in place, we realize that sometimes it requires a little bit longer runway than you would expect. So that's our lessons learned from the day before. And for the bootcamp number 1, on the canvas, this is our extract of our visible canvas. We identify new partners. So we actually had a new team member just joining our team, Leon, just a couple of weeks before the program has started. So his new inputs, he also has a different vision on things, different experiences in artificial reefs as well. So we identify new partners from this brainstorming session, and we also came to the conclusion that it was interesting to explore smaller customer segments. Let me just. So, for example, even though there are some customer segments that might be smaller markets, we realized as well that normally in these sort of projects, restoration projects, for example, coastal protection projects, customer consortium can be composed by these smaller segments, which can compose like a bigger market. So we thought that it was interesting to also explore these smaller customer segments. We kind of left out a little bit, and we need to so on the resources requirement. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, just not seeing the faces. So so for example, we need to work on some of the resources required. For example, some advisors and experts. We need a couple of advice and on some things. So we realize that we need to also work on that in the coming weeks together with Blue Value. So that's, I think that's it for Reefy.
All right, thank you, Daniel. All right, so good. We actually spent like 5 minutes. I'll ask the next team, maybe Tiffany or Nathan, to come online and just share their screen and their presentation from Sustainable Now Technologies.
Sure, thank you. Tiffany will share her screen here, and I'll walk you through it. Just wait for that to pull up. So we primarily focused on our lessons learned from Bootcamp number 1. We first of all went over the presentation. We were really impressed with what Antonio did, the production level especially, and I'm seeing that here again today. Fabrica to startups, you guys are knocking it out of the park. It's really like a fully produced television show. We're very impressed.
Thanks.
And we also learned everybody's really quick on their feet. We had that incident with Zoom where breakout rooms were not connecting properly, but everybody shifted tactics. Everybody used their time and their energy to the best effect, and that was fantastic work all around, teams and Fabrica to start up. So then from the elevator pitch, the template really gave us an opportunity to refine our pitch. When I get into an elevator and actually pitch it, historically, I am very wordy and use words that are not necessarily the easiest to understand. This was a really cool template that let us refine it and break it down to just the bare bones minimum, and that was very helpful for us. For the business model canvas, we really, we were on track with this mostly, but I'll be honest, the cards were very helpful to help us look at different aspects we had not considered for each category. Also, we were very individually focused on products as revenue streams, as opposed to revenue stream as a whole, and how those fit in. So it was really helpful for us to understand how these terms are used in the industry. So we definitely learned a lot there. Tiff, if you could take us to slide 2, that would be great. So we also learned a bit by networking with the other groups. We see the potential for partnerships, particularly we spoke offline with Patrick Jones from André Marquet. We learned they have a second spin-out company that's called BioF Solutions, and that's focusing on algal biofertilizer, which is essentially what our biomass is. So there's an opportunity for connection there. We've set up a call with him and the CEO of that spin-out group, and that will be happening in the next coming weeks. And then we also did some research on Spira, who I'm actually aware of for before this Startup Accelerator, and they're a great company. And it looks like they are outsourcing their production of spirulina for their dye production use. So we could be that outsource outlet for them. Similarly, Spiriat's business model is very much in line with a potential partnership for our produced biomass. And that could be particularly in countries where they're not producing, but they want to sell, where we may have our product into the market. So that's kind of what we learned from Bootcamp number 1. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nathan. All right, so thank you so much, guys, for your lessons learned. And we're now moving towards elevator pitch. So I'll just ask everyone to do their elevator pitch. Keep in mind, elevator pitches should take no more than 1 minute. But before you actually start your elevator pitch, just be so nice to tell me who you are. So just tell your name and what's your background, and that's basically it. And then you can just go to the elevator pitch. After each elevator pitch, I will randomly ask people to give their feedback, or if you really want to give your feedback, just give your feedback to the team or to the person that was presenting. Okay, so let's just follow the alphabetical order, and let's start with Aromat Eco from the United Kingdom. Maybe Patrick.
Hi there. Actually, Danny is going to do it.
All right, Danny.
Hello, everyone. So it's the first time that I'm speaking, so I'm part of Aromatico. I'm more in the scientific part of the business. So everything is new in terms of startup and all these kind of things. All the concepts are new, so it's great to be part of this
Great
program.
to have you. Well, what's your background, Daniel?
I'm molecular biologist, basically. Yeah,
All right.
synthetic biology. Yeah.
Synthetic biologist.
Yes.
Okay, great. So are you ready to give us your pitch?
Yes. So the pitch is Aromatico helps household brand become more sustainable by providing renewable, sustainable fragrances and flavors that are cheaper and better for the environment. And we were a little bit freestyling here, and we add tropical agriculture and fossil fuel are commonly used in the industry, and this causes ecological and environmental harm. Our patented innovative changes the way we produce household chemicals, providing a cleaner planet for the future.
Great. Any comments? Okay, I can go first if you want.
Of course.
So to who are you selling your products? Danny.
Yes, maybe Patrick can be also. This is one big question for us, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the product will be sold to household commodity producers. So, for example, Unilever or a perfume producer, for example. So they would be, it's B2B.
Okay, great. Anyone wants to give any kind of feedback or comment on the speech? Great. So that means that everyone understood. Great. Looking forward to connecting Elliot. I think this is Tiffany. Tiffany, do you want to share that with everyone on? Just unmute yourself. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me all right? Good. So I'm Tiffany Marie. I'm from Sustainable Now Technologies. I'm Nathan's partner. Nathan, could you turn your volume down, please? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and give you our pitch. So Sustainable Now Technologies helps carbon emitters to solve pollution of the environment and being subject to taxation on carbon emissions using biotechnology that captures carbon from the air and puts it back into the ground, which is better than other carbon capture options because our system is carbon negative, meeting legislative requirements by permanently removing carbon from the atmosphere, thereby reversing the effects of climate change as well. Thank you.
All right. So you did a leapfrog jump from Aromat to Sustainable Now Technologies speech, which is fine because you were like the last startup to go, but that's totally fine. Anyone wants to comment on Tiffany's speech of Sustainable Now Technologies? Just give some feedback. Did you understand it? Did you like it? Do you think there's something missing? Elliot?
I'm just wondering, who is the specific customer in this case? Like, what is the exchange of money, and how do you make money from offering these carbon offsets or carbon capture?
Well, because we have multiple revenue streams, we actually have multiple customers that we're targeting. Our main client, Nathan, can you please mute your thing? Thanks. Sorry about that. The feedback is really bad on this end. Our main target are carbon emitters themselves. We have a very specific group that we're going after. I won't get into that right now, but this particular elevator pitch is mostly for a general population. For example, right now, because we're mostly focused on fundraising, this would be for anyone who's like, oh, well, who are you? Nathan didn't mention this in our lessons learned, but one of the things that we did in which was a lessons learned, is we created a few different versions of the elevator pitch, depending on who we might be speaking to, if we know who it is that we're talking to. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. We have a few different customers. We're also targeting for our secondary revenue streams, people to sell the biomass to in different forms, the primary one being fertilizer to start. But this is probably more for general anybody, and our primary revenue stream would be carbon capture.
All right.
Tiffany,
what's your background?
My background?
Yeah, are you
well,
also
I'm the chief operations officer. So my background is mostly in marketing and management. Nathan is the one with most of the engineering and scientific background.
Okay, very well. So let's go to RT-Riff. RT-Riff, Ruben maybe?
Yeah, so my name is Ruben. I'm a master's student at the University of Aveiro. I'm getting my degree in marine biology. And together with my colleague Antonio, which is also marine biology of formation, right now getting his master as well, we had this idea of creating the RT-Riff, that our elevator pitch goes something like this. RT-Riff helps aquarium lovers to not having to use natural rock extracted from coral reefs by using an artificial solution made from oyster shells, which is better than Tropical Marine Centers, which is our main competitor, because it's customizable and faster to produce.
All right, very well. So Ruben,
yeah.
What stage are you guys in? Are you already producing this?
We have a prototype, a working prototype. We already presented it at some fairs, like for example, Tech Days in Aveiro, and I don't remember the name of the fair in Porto. That's organized by CIMAR, if I'm not mistaken. And we've already presented the prototype. It's working. We already have the material needed. We just really need to get. We're starting to sending some prototypes to the store so they can see and start.
So you're still not in sales mode. You're still not selling.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to do any kind of feedback or a comment on Ruben's pitch. Otherwise, we move on to our next startup, Graphene Water Technologies from the United Kingdom. Sebastian, maybe?
Hi guys, yeah, I'm Seb Leeper. My background is in material science and engineering, and then I did a PhD in nanoscience in the School of Chemical Engineering at the University of Manchester. So my teammate is Ahmed Abdul Karim, who's a visiting PhD student from Egypt. He's just finished his PhD in Cairo, and our elevator pitch goes something like this. Graphene water technologies helps industries that produce brine wastewater to solve the issue of concentrating the brine and achieving zero liquid discharge using our novel membrane crystallization technology, which is better than existing technologies because it is cheaper, more flexible, and sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any comments? Patrick?
Yeah. Now, you can probably say the same about us, but it sounded very technical. So I'm wondering how it will be perceived by a non-specialist.
How could you do that? If you have any specific advice you want to share with Sebastian?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna share you a link to a video where someone pitches a graphene type idea as well, and it's quite funny, but because it's, you know, as soon as you use very complicated language, the question really is how far do you throw them off? So is it possible to pitch these kind of technology heavy ideas without even mentioning the technology?
Right. Okay. That's a good feedback. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Sebastian. If you're, I think Patrick is going to share this in the the chat, so everyone can actually see the link for the video. I think Pierre, maybe do you want to speak? Do you want to give anything?
Sure. Yeah, I think I just want to comment. I would just suggest just breaking that down into a two-step process. It's just membrane distillation followed by crystallization. When you have a sequence, usually that kind of breaks it down and makes it easier to digest if you're, you know, looking to make it less technical. I'm just Chief Science Officer for Spira. We're an algae-based company that replaces animal-based and petroleum-based compounds in the industrial supply chain with more sustainable, cheaper, more healthful compounds derived from algae. And so one of the algae that we're right now focused on is spirulina, and we're deriving natural blue colorants to replace those that are artificial in the food, cosmetic, textile space. I normally would defer to my CEO, Elliot Roth, to do the pitch, but I just jumped in and did that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So one of the things that some people do is they use analogies, right? So when you speak about a startup, they say, well, we are Uber for X, or we are, something that people already know. Of course, when you are in deep science or high tech stuff like you guys are doing, sometimes it's really hard because the market is also quite knowledgeable in the space. So it's sometimes that opportunity is still not there. But whenever you can use analogies that people are well known to people, that's actually a good idea. So I'm actually moving on to the next team, Horta de Ria. Julio, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm Julio. I'm teacher, and I'm a labor for Ria de Aveiro. That's a well place with a diversification, biodiversification, natural resources, and we produce salicornia. And in our elevator pitch, Horta de Ria helps people and food producers through reducing the salt contents using salicornia dehydrated powder, which is better than salt because reduce the risk of having cardiovascular and kidney problems while satisfying current legislation.
Okay, Great. So tell me something, Julio. Which stage are you guys? Are you guys already selling Salicornia, or are you pre-sales?
Yeah, we already selling. We already selling. We're selling fresh, but because the time of the product is too short, we started to dehydrate it and make it in powder, and we are selling in powder. We have in a comment with several bakeries. We noticed that they have a problem to reduce the salt because of the less.
Right. So tell me something. This is more of a technical question, maybe. Why is Salicornia better than salt? Because Salicornia is salty because it has salt inside. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So why is that better than just salt?
Because it reduces like 75% of the amount of salt, and the taste is like the salt is similar, like using salt. So you are already reducing the amount of salt that you consume, and that's a problem with the people, and could be a solution for don't have problems of hypertension.
Right. So you can reduce salt consumption by 75% or so, yes, for the same saltness level taste-wise.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so enough trials. Philippe, maybe?
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Philippe.
Hi, André. Nice to see you again. I'm Philippe. I work as a researcher, a postdoc researcher in fish nutrition. Andrea is a financial consultant, and our other team member is a microbiologist. So our pitch is enough trials have helped aquaculture feed and health companies to solve their needs to validate new products in fish infection trials using high-end facilities for marine fish and the expert knowledge, which is better than doing it themselves because it's cheaper, faster, and ensures reliable results. And that's it.
Okay, any comments? Patrick?
Briefer and punchier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So can you do that? Briefer and punchier? Mike Tyson style?
I think I can still make some improvements to make it shorter.
Go on, give it a try.
Okay. So it would be like enough trials help.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a business.
That's exciting. Tell me about it.
I'm hearing something.
Chemical isomer that links to volatile organic.
Yeah, I think you have to mute your microphone, Julio.
And wraps them in a nanotube coating.
Huh. That's a little.
Or someone has to mute you. I don't know. Okay, great. So Flip, go on. You had some extra seconds to think on your pitch.
Okay, so enough trials helps aquaculture feed companies to solve their need to validate their products using high-end facilities, which is better than doing it themselves because it's cheaper, faster, and more reliable.
Okay, what stage are you right now? Are you already selling or still pre-sales?
No. We are still trying to make sure that our idea is more than an idea, that we have a business. We've made a financial, our first financial model, not business.
Okay, so you're still pre-sales, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Philippe. Let's move on to Pink Tech. Rita, are you there? Not Rita, maybe? Miguel?
Sorry, no, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. I'm Maria. I'm a PhD student in the Faculty of Science, and our team is formed by two PhD students, me and Rita, and two professors in the faculty. And tanto, our project intends to find alternative food source for aquaculture in the way that reduce the use of fish meal and fish oil, and use a pink bacteria, and the pink bacteria and the microcrustacean Daphnia magna fed with the pink bacteria, and we try to done to fish. Sorry, but I don't speak very well English, so I understand, but I don't speak.
No worries, no worries. Let's just make it simpler. Can you read that, but in real English, not in scientific English now? Take out the name of the species, because I guess at least I will not be able to understand it anyways. Can you do that again?
You try to use pink bacteria, a plantomycete, and use two microcrustacean. That is.
All right. So sorry, Maria. What are mycostations or mycostations?
It's in the water. There is a little organism that live in the water.
Right, in the seawater, in the ocean.
Fresh water.
Okay, fresh water.
Fresh water, yes. Right. And the microcrustacean fed with bacteria. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Then the bacteria and the microcrustacean is done to the fish.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
That's basically is that.
Okay, so you're trying to use bacteria to decompose a special organism that lives in fresh water and produce a byproduct which is food for fish.
For fish, yes, in the way to reduce the fish meal and fish oil.
Why being pink is important? Because the name of your company is Pink Tech. Why the pink thing? Why is
because Daphnia, the organism.
Right.
How do you know? Retain the color, the pink color of bacteria. And it tried to do the same with the fish, because color is very important in the market fish. For salmon, okay?
Got it. Okay, much easier to understand now. Color, because it's important for the marketing and even for the
some
product.
customers only buy if the color is good.
Pink.
And the other question is the aquaculturist, the persons that have fish in the house.
Yeah.
The color is important too.
Of course. Okay. Very well. Understood. Thank you, Maria. Moving to the next team, Renew. Renew, Jean-Pascal, maybe?
Yeah. So my name is Jean-Pascal. My background is I am a marine biotechnologist since 28 years, spent 20 years at academic level, and since 8 years for industry. And our elevator pitch, Renew helps food chain actors to solve their waste and loss challenges using next generation upcycling technologies brought at their doorsteps, which is better than centralized solution because we lead the way and create value sustainably, whatever and wherever it is.
Okay, so let me just read from my own source. So Renew provides an innovative solution to help reverse the global crisis of biological waste and environmental pollution. Great, I understand that. And then what you guys do is you recycle marine biomass by bycatch and byproducts that is commonly wasted, and you transform those into economically, socially, and environmentally valuable products. And some of those products can be ingredients for feed and food. So how do you do that? What is the process that you use?
It's a mix between physical and biotechnological process. We use, for example, disrupting technologies, and after that we use enzyme to solubilize, and after that fractionation using membrane, for example, to separate protein, fat, minerals. After that, to stabilize them and formulate them for feed or food application.
And you were saying that this is better than the current solution. So
yeah,
why is this better?
Yes, because we change the paradigm. Nowadays, biomass comes to the factory. In our principle, factory goes to biomass. It's a mobile plant. Okay, and so we can treat biomass as soon as it appears without any logistic and storage problem, because we act as soon as possible and as close as possible to the deposit, and make the transformation for local users, so we avoid logistical problems.
Okay, understood. And do you already have a trial or a pilot station where you're already working?
Yeah, we have done also trial, but on a fixed plant. And nowadays we have to look for funders to put it into a container and make it really mobile.
Okay, very well, understood. Good. I think there's like a bunch of things that can maybe be improved in your pitch, but we'll go through that along the bootcamp. Don't worry. All right, Red Rose Developments from Ireland. Anne?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I'm Anne Ruddy, and my background is that I'm a criminologist. I'm now a seaweed aquaculturist and processor.
Okay,
so I grow seaweed and process it. So I went from telling people not to sell weed, and now I'm on the dark side. Now, joining me in my team, we've got Vincent, whose expertise is in that of soil conditioner and fertilizer, and Sven, whose expertise is both financial but also in franchise modeling. Our pitch is that Red Rose Developments helps local communities to create sustainable seaweed products that will meet the growing demands to solve the increasing overharvesting of marine biomass. Using novel processing close to source, we retain the value and the properties within macroalgae, which is better than the current method which is high energy driven and wasteful in processing. We are creating more value by using less stock.
Great. So in your case, you just gave a great example of an excellent presentation of yourself. No one will ever forget you, right? Because people remember your background in criminology, and you know, the joke was super funny. So that's exactly what you want to do. You want to, you know, open light, and it's memorable, and people remember who Anne is, and then about the pitch itself. Mostly, you know, in science people or people with scientific background, or you know, any startup that has a heavy science focus, they tend to use lots of jargon, and sometimes that jargon is not even super heavy, like biomass, which is easy, understandable. But you know, if you want to translate that, what kind of biomass exactly are you trying to you know, to overcompensate or to compensate with this? Is it fish? Is it seafood? Is it other kind of biomass? So what exactly, the more specific you are, usually the better. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's a good pitch. The advantage, if I understand correctly, is that you guys are less energy intensive than the competition. Is that correct?
It's less energy intensive and less waste. It's the waste that's the key factor. At the moment, as demand increases for macroalgae, harvesters, particularly wild harvest, is under pressure to cut ever increasing amounts. What we're doing is creating more output from less stock.
Right. And
So
what,
it's sustainable.
how can you be less energy intensive? What's the magic behind your process?
Because we're creating two product streams, we're creating a liquid output and a solid output. Pre-treating the seaweed of different species, and we can go across a wide range of commercially valued seaweeds. We are creating the two streams by pre-treating it and breaking the cell structure down. And that will give us the liquid output, which could be mineral rich, protein rich, and then the spent biomass has carbon, has a number of, depending on how we treat it, as to where the split would go in terms of value.
Really the industrial process. Okay, so does anyone have feedback to Anne? Pierre, go on.
Yeah, thanks so much. I had a question. Are you valorizing products from red, brown, or green seaweed, or all the above? Yeah.
All of it. The whole idea is when I work with my harvesters, they tend to cut for large companies, and they will cut one species. Now, the problem is that intensive cutting on that species is damaging to the environment. The higher value stocks, the reds and the greens, because they're less weight, although they're higher in value, it's difficult to get to the weight that we would need to get to for process. We can do it. And as long as the outputs are good and we've got a market, then yes, we can process. But at the moment, we'd be focused more on the kelps, the browns, and the fucuses.
All right. Thank you, Anne. So, Daniel, would you mind doing your pitch now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to transfer this one to Leon. He wants to do this one.
Hi guys, so my name is Leon. I'm the marine biologist at Reefy and actually the newest member. The past 5 years I've been working throughout Southeast Asia and the Maldives in coral reef restoration. And now I'm basically the ecology advisor at Reefy. So I'll give you our pitch. So Reefy helps resorts, governments and contractors to solve coastal erosion, flooding and marine degradation using an interlocking Lego-like artificial reef, which is better than existing solutions because it is stable, dissipates wave energy, uses local sediments and hosts marine biodiversity with 3 levels of complexity.
Great. So this brick-like design, how do you guys do this? Is it concrete? What kind of material is it?
So we're looking at different types of material. So one of them is a biopolymer and one of them is steel. And in theory, it could also be concrete. But the magic of our blocks is that they are hollow. So we have a volume reduction. This reduces the amount of concrete you need, like a CO2 reduction. So we can fill them with local sediments on site. Yeah, so that's one of our advantages.
And what are you guys actually selling? Are you selling the product, so the blocks, or are you selling the service, has a turnkey solution? So what are you guys exactly selling?
Well, we can do both. We can either manufacture the blocks and supply the blocks to a customer, or we can go to a site and basically help them in the design of the structure so that they can be built on site.
What stage are you guys right now? Are you still in
so now we're in development design stage. We have a few small prototypes that have been tested in like small wave flumes for wave dissipation, capacity, etc. And now we're designing the ecological side of the system.
Okay, thank you, Leon. So moving maybe to refit.
Sorry, if I might.
Yeah, go on, Ruben.
I wanted to first and foremost, I think Artireef has to talk with Reefy a little bit because we may have something going on here because they have a product quite similar to ours. But I want to ask you because in your pitch you say you want to help to stop coastal degradation, erosion, and floods. And what I wanted to ask you, and specifically to you, Leon, because you worked in Southeast Asia, why are you better than, for example, mangroves?
Better than a mangrove. All right, so we are focusing on coral reefs. So where coral reefs have been lost, for example, in the Maldives, and now you're seeing like wide-scale coastal erosion because the wave-breaking capacity of the reef is gone. We can help that. We can create basically an underwater breakwater that reduces those waves, but also is nature enhancing.
Okay, thanks, Leon. So Refix, Raul or Antonio, are you guys there?
Hello, André.
Hi, Raul.
Hello. I am biologist and I have a master's degree in natural protected areas. And I can start with my pitch elevator. Refix helps people who care health and well-being to solve the lack of choices of healthy and sustainable recovery drinks using seawater that provides minerals that the body needs to recover energy at 100%, which is better than conventional sports drinks because all of them only contain water, sugar and chemical additives in plastic bottles.
Okay, so you are like Isostar, but healthier.
Sorry?
You are like Isostar, but healthier.
Yes, for example, it's like a Powerade, but healthier. Yeah, it's a Star Gatorade.
So you have isotonic properties in your water?
Yes, isotonic and more properties because seawater has a lot of magnesium. So with our quantity of seawater, we reach the legal value of European Union to declare health properties of the product. Like, for example, Refix helps to tiredness and fatigue. Refix helps to teeth and muscles, etc.
Very well, very well. And you source this water from the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Yeah, we extract the seawater in a natural protected area in Costa da Morte in Galicia. And this protected area has the best quality of the water according with the analysis of the government in all Europe.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've seen your website. It's quite interesting. Are you guys in sales modes?
Yes, we are selling in Spain, USA, Switzerland, Chile, and Slovenia. But we have small distributors. For us, it's super difficult to introduce the product in supermarkets because supermarkets doesn't want to hear us, doesn't want to attend the calls.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. It's a hard life there. Okay, thank you, Raul. I hope that this bootcamp and this ongoing accelerator will provide you helpful tips to move your business. Now we have Saltico, a freshwater-free textile company, and maybe Nelly or Antonia, I don't know.
Hi, I'm Nelly. I'll be giving the pitch today. I'm the CEO at Saltico. My background is in strategic design and management and design engineering. Antonia is also on the call. She's our CPO, and her background is in design and products. And we also have Finn and Julian, who aren't here today, but Finn is in technology and has a chemistry background, and Julian is our CEO and has a background in also design engineering as well as mechanical engineering.
Right.
So I'm just gonna get started. Saltico helps sustainably visioned apparel brands to solve meeting their environmental goals by using salt-tolerant plant fibers to make a planet-positive technical stuffing, which is better than existing textiles because it offers improved sustainable credentials without sacrificing cost or performance.
Right. So what's the trick? What's the magic? Because, salt water is not the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about textiles. So what's new here?
What's new here is that currently there are no textiles on the market that are plant-based and use absolutely no fresh water in their process. So especially in technical stuffing, which is our kind of entry point to market. So this creates a very interesting USP. But alongside that, there are a lot of different accolades that come along with not just the product, but the process we use. And that really goes down to the agriculture and how we grow the plants, the use of seawater in that process, and the spaces we create, how that sequesters carbon, so it makes us a carbon negative product. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, any comments or any suggestions, feedback to Nelly? Okay.
That was really clear, concise, fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
very well.
Endorse that, definitely. Can I ask Nelly, what plants are you actually growing? I missed that.
We're not actually sharing the plants. We're unable to share that at this point, but there are a variety of salt-tolerant plants that we're looking into.
Okay, but they're traditionally land-based, not sea
They're
plants.
land-based, exactly. Yes, they grow in soil, so they can grow on coastlines, but also in brackish water or salt marshes.
Thank
Very
you.
well. Thank you, Nelly. And Spira has already pitched themselves. So I think we can just go to Spirit, spirulina producer, Antonio from Italy. Are you there, Antonio?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
All right.
sorry, I'm stuck in the traffic, but still present.
Yeah, great. If you're driving and you're stuck in the traffic, then you can pitch.
Yeah.
Unless you tell us it's too unsafe for you to pitch, and we don't want to be liable, right?
Yeah, but I'm quite prepared about my business. So I run my business from for a year right now. So I'm just trying to catch up my speech, and I will read it. But
No worries, man. You can just take it from memory. Don't read it. Don't read while you drive. Yeah. Don't do Zoom calls while you drive neither. But
I
anyway.
introduce myself. Actually, I'm a kind of biologist. I'm biotechnologist, specialized in bioinformatics, and then I specialize myself with PhD in microalgae growing in general. So the pitch, starting from the name of the product, is organic sustainable spirulina spirit, and helps those who look for the healthy and sustainable to solve, make sure that what they use is healthy, nourishing, safe, traceable, and good for their health, I think, for the environment, and using our competence and the environmental friendly process, which is better than any other producer and traders because of the process, competence, passion located in Spirit can offer.
Okay, very well. So you guys are selling spirulina already, right? So you are already in the market and selling the produce.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, great. Okay,
actually, the magic is about the process because we start to taking advantage of different other processes and take the heat power from biogas plants in order to heat a greenhouse and producing all year round and decreasing the cost. Then we had a patent technologies that we can able to use bioproducts from food industry in order to feed our spirulina production and to meet the regulation of the organic producers spirulina on EU board. This is the magic.
Very well. Thank you, Antonio. Okay, I'll just move on to the next startup, which is actually the last startup that already pitched, Sustainable Now Technologies. That was Tiffany. And I guess that's it, right? Yeah, Pierre, you want to say something?
I'm sorry, I was really curious with Antonio's last pitch, if you may allow one question. Was the spirulina grown organically, or were you just deriving products for organic cultivation of terrestrial crops using the biomass residues from spirulina? That wasn't clear. You said organic spirulina, so I'm assuming you have a process to enable spirulina to be grown organically. Am I correct?
Yes. If I may reply, the technologies is about extracting minerals from residues. That is what about European Union says that it must to be on organic spirulina producer. If you know the legislation about it, you have to use organic mineral source, and you know that if you put organic in bacteria culture, you know what you put in, but you don't know what you put out. So this is about our technologies. We treat bioproducts from industry in before and then extract minerals and use it to feeding our production.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Antonio. All right, so let's just move on. Thank you so much for everyone pitching and the cross feedbacks and questions that were all very helpful. And let's just move on to the actual serious side of our presentation today. So customer development, what it is and how we'll talk about it today. You might have heard about the traditional approach, the business plan. Some of you guys might actually have done a business plan. So I'll be doing some, questions along the day. So it's just a quick show of hands. You can use the emojis or just raise your hand if you want. So how many of you guys have done a traditional business plan for your startup? Okay, most of you guys, right? So almost everyone. So that's basically the traditional business plan approach has been taught in business schools, and it's actually quite useful if you think about it, and if you have a business which is well established. But like most of you guys today have shown in your pitches, you are still either pre-market or pre-sales or prototyping or researching. So what you want to do is something maybe a little bit different in the beginning. And Professor Steve Blank from Stanford University has became well known when we published a couple of books of startup strategy 10 years ago. And he says no business plan survives the first contact with the customer. It's an iteration of Mike Tyson's, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. But that's actually true. Startups don't fail because they lack a product. They fail because they lack customers and a profitable business model. So his framework, it's called customer development and has two phases, phase search and phase execution. In phase search, you are either doing customer discovery or customer validation. And while you are in this, in this process, you are looping until you validate your customers. Once you have validated your customers, you enter into what he calls execution phase, where you can do customer creation, company building, and grow your business. So for that, we need to understand which stage of a startup are you right now. So 3 stages. Stage 1 is what we call problem solution fit, where you are still definitely doing customer development, or you should be doing customer development. Then you have stage 2, which is product market fit, where you're doing customer validation. And then stage 3, which is scaling the company, and that is mostly customer creation and company growth. So when you are problem solution fit, you are finding a problem we're solving and discovering a viable solution. You are maybe doing customer interviews, demo pages, and essentially trying to develop what we call a minimum viable business. When you are stage 2 in the so-called product market fit, which you might have heard, The most important stage here is really to pass through the stage. You would have validated your product and your business. So when you are in product market fit stage, before you validated your product or your business or your market, we say that you are pre-product or pre-market. And then after you do that you have product market fit. So maybe just a quick show of hands as well. Who thinks that their company is still in stage 1, problem solution fit? So you are still finding a problem worth solving. No one. Everyone thinks that they have already found a problem worth solving. Great. Maybe Philippe is still maybe thinking that his problem might not be a problem worth solving. Okay, that's very humble and very interesting thing to say at this stage. So who thinks that they are in product market fit, or you might be still pre-product or pre-market? And here I really need to see lots of hands, because I know lots of people that have told me during the pitch that they haven't, or they're not selling yet. So if you're not selling yet or seriously selling, then you are still in product market fit stage. Yeah, okay, so lots of shows of hands. And who is already in a scale or customer creation? So it's already focusing on growing the company. Yeah, Pierre, anyone else? And Orta? Okay, so you have already validated your product, and what you really want now is to optimize conversion, is to grow the company and, make it profitable. Great. So one of the the leading theories right now that we have been using, you might have heard about it, is Lean Startup from Eric Ries. And Eric Ries, he says that startups can shorten their product development cycles by adopting a combination of business hypothesis-driven experimentation, iterative product releases, and what Eric Ries calls the validated learning. So you might have done the first pass through your business model, and this is from Antonio's bootcamp last Tuesday. But this is just the first step. And I think this is really, really important, because along this bootcamp and along this acceleration program, you will understand that you'll have to go back to the business model and refine the business model. So what you have done was the first step of designing the model. And now we're going to do step 2, defining some hypotheses, and then step 3, which is really testing the model and understanding whether those hypotheses are validated or not. So in the first level, we say that we are in the business model level. In the second level, we call it the hypothesis level. And the third level, we call it testing. And of course, this is relatively iterative. So you can go from hypothesis to test and then move on. And that's exactly what we want to translate here with the slide, the build, measure, learn cycle, which is, you might have an MVP or a product, you measure, you get some metrics, you learn out of it, and then you continue building. Or, of course, if you learn that those metrics are not achieving the results that you wanted, either because you're not selling, you're not achieving growth, you're not achieving any kind of sizable objectives, then you might want to pivot, which is going back to your own ideas and tweaking your business model, and then trying it out again. So what the pivot does is it changes the business model. And when you test and learn that your venture will fail, you must quickly pivot to a new business model and value proposition. And the cycle that we'll be using is what we call the validation process. So you design the business model, you define the hypothesis, you prioritize those hypotheses, then we're going to test those hypotheses, analyze the results, and then of course go back to design stage and refine the business model until you have a crystallized business model, to use a more scientific expression. So critical hypothesis. Most of you guys are scientists, or you have a scientific background, so I think you'll be quite familiar with this mindset, because this mindset is really the traditional science mindset, the hypothesis-driven scientific model that has been the pillar foundation of the foundation cornerstone of science sought for the last 300 years or so. So first of all, you need to love the problem. Most people, most entrepreneurs, especially if they are new entrepreneurs or first-time entrepreneurs, they tend to be in love not with the problem, they tend to be in love with their solution. So if you are in love with your solution, if you are in love with your brick-sized concrete, moors, if you are in love with your process, whatever it is, then try to run away from it and really be in love with the problem at hand, what you're really trying to solve. One way to develop hypothesis is to use some of these templates that we're going to go through today. So one of those templates is something like this. So I believe that my target customers for my product or service or my startup will do this or use this solution when this experiment has this result. And of course, whatever here is in gray can be substituted by whatever or whoever is your target customer, whatever is your solution, whatever experiment you want to do, and the result that you want to get to. So let me give you a specific example here of the Apple's iPod. So imagine you were in the Steve Jobs team in the early days, 2000 or 1999, and you were given this assignment by Steve Jobs to decide whether you should develop a music player like the iPod. So a way to do this could be to have this hypothesis. And the hypothesis was that people will pay to download music to listen to in public for a profit. So assumption A is really the most and the riskiest assumption. Because if you think about assumption B, had been validated by Napster. So people back in the 90s, they were already downloading music online. And assumption C had been validated by Walkman, right? So people were already listening to music in public, either on Discman or cassette players, or even MP3 players that came out before the iPod. So assumption A is the one that needs testing because the other two were pretty much validated. So you don't need to test it yourself because you can find that evidence from other market sources, or you can basically validate that from other sources. So how to analyze hypothesis? There are essentially two criteria. Criteria number one is the probability of an invalidated hypothesis. And criteria number two is the impact of that invalidation in your business model in case, of course, it's invalidated. So you can use this matrix to define priorities. So in one axis, you have the probability of invalidated hypothesis. In the other axis, you have the impact to the business model if invalidated. And everything that is red is what we call the critical hypothesis. Everything that is green is not so critical because it will either not impact in your business model if invalidated, or will have not a very high chance of being invalidated, right? So what you really want to test are the ones that have a high chance of being invalidated, or a high chance of probability of being invalidated, and the ones that have a high impact in your business model in case they are invalidated. So I think we have a question here. How should we define an hypothesis when the product is identical to what is currently, sorry, let me just check here the question. So the question from Patrick is, how should we define an hypothesis when the product is identical to what is currently offered, except its production or impact is more sustainable? Okay, so we're going there. and we're not going to forget this question. Let me just go through a number of examples here, and then we'll go to Patrick's question. So let's see this hypothesis number one. I believe that customer segment has this problem. So this can be a template for hypothesis. Another one, hypothesis number two. I believe that customer segment thinks solution solves this problem. Hypothesis number three, I believe that customer segment will use this specific channel. Hypothesis four, I believe that customer segment will pay for this solution. Hypothesis five, I believe that customer segment will pay this price for this solution. And this hypothesis here, of course, is very important because it allows you to evaluate the pricing of your offer. And what we're going to use is what we call the hypothesis form. I'm not 100% sure that you have this in paper form, but you will have it in digital form in the website that has been provided by Fábrica de Startups, okay? And this is what we call the hypothesis form. And this hypothesis form, you know, in digital form is the same. You'll have the level of importance. So what is the importance for your business model? And what is the subjective probability of being invalidated? And of course here, the bigger the percentage, the bigger the probability, and the bigger the alert sign, the bigger the importance to the, you know, to the business model. So you have 4 levels there, and you have 4 levels there. Just go for high if it's 80%, if you think it's 80% probability of being invalid, and go for low if it's less than 15%, just as a rule of thumb. So an example here could be business XYZ, and hypothesis number 1, you have a responsible. So responsible is the name of your startup team member that is going to validate or try to validate this hypothesis, the date when it's postulated, what does it impact in your business model? So it might be, in this case, value proposition. And then the hypothesis itself is, we believe people don't start their business because they don't know how. So that's the hypothesis in this case. And the importance level was fairly high, but not over 80%. And the probability of being invalid fairly low, so below 50%. So in this case, that's it. So just some cautionary notes. Don't forget to define critical hypothesis for all the identified customer segments. So if you have more than one customer segment, then chances are most of your business will have more than just one customer segments. You need to define those critical hypotheses for all the identified customer segments. And this is actually quite important because lots of teams tend to forget about it. So what we're going to do is a quick exercise. We're going to define at least 10 critical hypotheses, and then do this by completing just the top of the form, which will be the equivalent in your digital brochure. And the way we're going to do this is using the breakout rooms. So the teams will be divided in breakout rooms, and for 30 minutes, we'll be doing this. I will be circulating, or I'll be visiting some of these breakout rooms during the 30 minutes to make sure that teams are not lost, and if they have any questions, I'll try to be of help. Now, going back to Patrick's question, because I think we still have some time. The question of Patrick was, so how should we define an hypothesis when the product is identical to what is currently offered, except its production or impact is more sustainable? Okay, so if you want to remember some of the hypotheses, one of the hypotheses might be pricing. If it's more sustainable, what you want to validate is that the market is willing to pay a premium or is willing to pay for that added sustainability that is brought to your product by its production or whatever process that you're using. So one of the ways is to validate the price and to validate the premium, the premium level that you're going to charge your clients. Another one, of course, is trying to validate customer segment. So some customer segments are more willing to pay for that specific differentiation than others, right? And those are the customer segments you want to validate, and you want to validate that specific solution that you are implementing is allowing this customer segment fulfill a need or fulfill a job to be done in order to make their business either more profitable or more sustainable or both, right? So I'm not sure if this is clear for Patrick, but if it's not, during the breakout room sessions, I will jump to your session and try to go through it together. Is that okay? Great. Okay, so let's do the Zoom breakouts. Hopefully this is going to work out well, and I will ask here the production team to assist with the breakout rooms. Yeah.
Let's make a test just to check if everything is okay.
We're going to do a quick test just to make sure that this is working fine. Okay, so you should start to go to your rooms, and there must be some kind of message, Tiffany, popping up in your, unless you are alone today. If you are alone, don't worry, I'll work it out with you. So have full view. Do you have any team members with you today? Okay, great.
And I think you'll find it very exciting. It has styles of rock, jazz, and disco that I've overdubbed with a lot of electronic drums and toys, along with the usual percussion. same form. The same form.
segments that we have here.
Okay, we got a guest. Hi there.
Hi there. How are you? How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Good. Great. So how is it going? Have you been able to?
Yeah, so we're struggling a little bit. I'm going to show it to you. So there's several aspects. One is that we are we're kind of going at this. The products already exist on the market, but they have sustainability problems, or they are natural and possibly sustainable, but much more expensive. So we can have one hypothesis based on sustainability, and then essentially we're looking for a higher price. And the other one is that we're offering a natural product at a lower price. So the concept is that we're preparing an MVP, and we want to start offering this to consultants and potential customers and see at a given price if they show interest to buy it. Yeah.
Okay, very well. So, you know, this is actually the way you want to do this usually is to break this hypothesis in two, and have one hypothesis for the low price product and have another hypothesis for the high price product. Because if you again, using a scientific analogy, you want to have these equations with just one independent variable, because if you have two independent variables, you really don't know whether it's what is causing the effect.
Yeah, totally.
So if you just have one independent variable, that it's going to be much easier for you to understand what is actually going on.
Yeah. So then the challenge becomes to identify the right target to test only one of them, because they may care about multiple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're going to divide the hypothesis. You're not going to eliminate hypothesis. What you're going to do is to create multiple hypotheses around the same hypothesis. So in this case, we believe that our customers, just to fill it in, the hypothesis here, the component would be the value proposition apparently. And then we believe that our customers can add value to their products by using our product instead of competitors which are less sustainable or not natural, and customers will purchase our product at the higher price we set. Sustainable equals higher price, natural equals lower price. So we believe that our customers can add value to their products by using our low-priced products, which instead of competitors, in this case, this will be the natural product. So, and you still need to validate whether they are willing to go for it. And then another hypothesis, which is the so-called sustainable one at the higher price, to understand that they want to go that way. As you said, you need to define who are the customers. So if you go back to your customer segments, you will need to outreach to several of your customer segments, or at least the ones that you have, that you believe that are the right target for the specific natural or sustainable product lines, and try it out with them.
Yeah.
And I would say that the importance is correct. This is super critical, and probability of being invalid depends on the product line. So maybe the sustainable has a lower probability of being invalid than the natural one.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with sustainability is it's not something that directly affects the customers or customers in the value chain, but it's kind of an indirect kind of concept, if you know what I mean. So that's why it's not a feature of the product. The product is chemically identical, and they just take our word for the fact that it is sustainable. And that's why I was asking that question.
So another hypothesis that first of all, you need to validate, because you can spend the entire day discussing this with each other and you will not arrive to any specific conclusions. So the only way to do this is really to outreach to whoever are going to be your customers, right? People that are purchasing these products, and asking them, and they will tell you. Customers usually they don't lie when it comes to actually buy or don't buy the product. So they will tell you if they need, they will explain it to you, and they will tell you. But another thing that you might want to test as an hypothesis is whether there is a certification process, and whether that certification process could be a way to boost the credibility of the sustainability of your process.
Yeah.
And that certification process might already exist or not, depending on on the knowledge of your market.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Often when it's sold, you can see that they have 20 different certificates. There's lots of certifications. So that is
in terms the hypothesis exercise, the deal is really quantity here trumps quality. So aim to create as much hypothesis cards as possible.
Okay.
Don't worry too much about the intrinsic quality of makes sense, doesn't make sense. And simplicity is also important. Like I said, you don't want to have hypotheses that are very convoluted with lots of things inside. You want to have very simple hypotheses.
Yeah.
Does this do this? Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for you to.
Okay, that's very good suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll jump into another room now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Knock, knock. Olá, Ruben e António, tudo bem?
Olá, André, tudo bem?
Então,
Olá.
olha, dar aqui a minha visitinha de médico, como se costuma dizer, só para ver como é que as coisas estão a correr e perceber se precisam aqui de alguma dica.
Nós tivemos algum problema porque o que nós estamos a ver é que as hipóteses parece que se repetem um bocado.
Okay.
Ou seja, nós temos muita hipótese de a falta de alternativa de uma alternativa ecológica para a rocha, se há a oportunidade de pagar por uma alternativa mais ecológica, pagar por uma alternativa customizável, ou seja, a premissa base é sempre a mesma, o que muda é quem é que paga ou porque é que está a pagar, são as nossas hipóteses.
Ok, mas eu acho que no vosso caso até estão a fazer isto bem, porque vocês têm hipóteses aparentemente simples e bastante incisivas, e isso são boas notícias. Deixa eu ver aqui, se calhar só começando pela hipótese número 1.
Por exemplo,
okay.
Elas estão um bocadinho tortas porque eu abri-as agora todas.
Não, tranquilo. Deixa só ver aqui um. Portanto, we believe that aquarium owners lack an alternative to natural rock extracted from reefs. Ok. Pronto, acho que é uma boa hipótese. É uma hipótese também da proposta de valor, aparentemente,
certo,
ou talvez do customer, mas eu acho que é mais proposta de valor, porque tem a ver com as alternativas que eles têm neste momento.
Nós não conseguimos
e pronto, e vocês aqui Pronto, acho que é uma boa hipótese. Vocês, no fundo, aqui estão a perceber se eles de facto têm alternativas ou não. A segunda hipótese, qual é?
Portanto, ok, esta seria a 3. Siga para a
Okay.
3.
Are willing to pay for an alternative to natural rock extracted from coral reefs. Ok. Ok, acho que está boa. Terceira.
Pois.
We believe that aquarium owners are willing to pay to have customized live rocks. Também está boa, porque vocês aqui validam uma coisa diferente, que é a questão da customização. Ok, está bom.
Depois aqui.
We believe that oyster culturists are willing to pay to get rid of oyster culture waste. Ok, fantástico. Pá.
É mais é uma vertente de mais uma via de lucro que nós ainda não tínhamos pensado.
Certo, faz sentido. E até é relativamente fácil de chegarem lá. We believe that aquarium stores are willing to pay to provide an artificial solution, não é?
Certo.
An artificial solution to natural rock. É assim, tu provides, pois, tu stock, no fundo.
Sim, é mais o retail aqui, se calhar.
É mais o retail, e portanto eles vão ter que stockar ou vão ter que comprar, portanto are willing
talvez
to buy,
retail.
não é, e não apenas comprar, não é?
Certo.
Ok, muito bem. E a outra, we believe that public aquariums are willing to pay to have customized live rock in their aquarium. É assim, eles à partida já pagam, não é? Isso vocês já sabem.
Certo.
E portanto, hipóteses que são óbvias não precisam tipicamente ser testadas.
Certo.
Ou hipóteses têm uma elevadíssima probabilidade de estar certas. O que vocês aqui se calhar podem fazer é customizar, sim, mas o que vocês querem perceber é se conseguem vender a vossa solução aos aquários públicos, digamos, aos oceanários da vida, coisas do género, é isso?
Certo.
Pronto, e tem um bocado mais a ver com o fator também de diferenciação, ou seja, are willing to pay to have customized and naturally sourced live rock. Né? Pronto, e a outra, aquarium stores are willing to outsource aquarium builds to provide customized experience. Muito bem, acho que também é boa. A outra, aquarium owners are willing to pay for our artificial rock because it has no alien critters in it. O que é que são alien critters?
Basicamente, às vezes dentro das rochas, das naturais, vêm algumas espécies de organismos que nós não temos nos aquários.
Ok, pronto, parece muito boa também. E pronto, eu acho que vocês fizeram aqui um excelente trabalho.
É tudo à volta do mesmo.
Pronto, acho que fizeram aqui de facto um excelente trabalho. A questão é, porque já validaram algumas destas coisas?
Algumas já. Por exemplo, essa dos Alien Critters. Nós sabemos, aliás, era um problema que nós não tínhamos em ideia que era, mas depois de falarmos com clientes, eles é que nos abriram os olhos para esse problema. A parte da customização também é uma coisa que nós sabemos pelo menos de 3 lojas em Portugal que estão dispostas a pagar por ser uma oferta, chamemos-lhe única no país, porque não há muita gente que faça assim uma customização tão a fundo como a nossa. Quanto ao ser natural ou ser artificial, também já validámos junto de donos de aquários, porque normalmente são pessoas que têm uma paixão também pela ecologia, o que leva a que se preocupem com isso. Basicamente esses 3 estão validados. O que toca em aquários, em donos de aquários e em lojas de aquários, a maioria já está validada. O problema está na parte dos aquários públicos e também na parte dos produtores de ostra, porque neste momento o que nós validamos com os produtores de ostra é que eles não se importam de fornecer a matéria-prima de graça devido a lhe reduzir os custos a eles, mas ainda não sabemos se eles querem começar a pagar para nós lhe tirarmos o que eles atualmente já pagam. Se calhar se pagassem menos ou assim.
Se já pagam é um no-brainer, quer dizer, se já pagam mesmo, a questão é saber o que é que eles estão de facto a pagar. E se vocês, ou seja, eles se calhar estão a pagar capacidade industrial a sério e gajos que tiram toneladas e não apenas
Sim, sim.
uns quilos.
Por exemplo, nós trabalhamos de momento só com um produtor de ostras que paga um caminhão para lhe ir lá buscar as ostras. Estamos a falar de cerca de, ele falou-me 6 caminhões por ano. É uma quantidade imensa de ostras.
Pois é.
Ele fala que...
E esses caminhões que vão lá buscar as ostras, o que é que eles fazem com aquilo?
Aquilo vão para aterros.
Para aterro.
É desperdício.
Pronto. Nós estamos com... Vamos regressar agora às salas principais. Portanto, pessoal, eu acho que fizeram aqui um bom trabalho. Eu vou sair e pronto. E vamos ver depois a sala principal. Está bem? Até já.
Até já.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Desligar o som também.
Breakout rooms. I hope that the breakout room sessions have been productive and that you have been able to develop the exercise. I was able to get into a couple of rooms and to see how things were going. Some groups were a little bit more advanced than others. That's totally normal at this stage. So don't be too worried if you didn't have the chance to go through all the hypotheses or work out with your team extensively. We will have a coffee break now. This will take us 15 minutes. In case, of course, you didn't do the exercise, you can still. We are going to put on the breakout rooms again, so you can still work a little bit more. Otherwise, if you think that you have completed all the hypothesis, you can simply enjoy this free time and have a coffee or something like that. Okay, so we'll be back at 5 p.m. Lisbon time, and that's 15 minutes from now. See you. Enjoy your time. Bye-bye.
Sorry, may I have a question? No.
Amazing days,
Washing all my dreams away. Skin is hanging from the chill you set me thinking. A lazy day, a lazy day. A summer lazy days of summertime. Lazy days of summertime. Sun-drenched in the night, and the salty and wild. Long lazy days, long lazy days, long lazy days of summertime, summertime, I'm just a little story for you with the letters out of place. I've been putting my head in the sand, but the weather's changing daily. I'm just a little man looking at you. I'm making my home in a hole. I'm better off with maybes. I'm sweeping the floor, making space for two. It's a wonderful life you will find if you let it overtake you. I'm just a little man looking at you. I'm just a little man looking at you.
Out in the bush, out in the scrubland, in the heat of the day, you can hear a superb starling, a superb glossy starling, glossy green on its back and orange breast, very handsome.
Okay, guys, so welcome back to the second part of this boot camp. We are now going to the next, to the results of the critical hypothesis and going to review a couple of teams. So to do that, I can either call you guys, or you can just volunteer if you want to show your own hypothesis. So does any team want to volunteer and show their own critical hypothesis? So we go through them together for the convenience of the rest of the cohorts today. Yeah, Ruben? All right, so Ruben and Artrif. Please share your screen with us, share your critical hypothesis boards or canvas.
Let's see.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ruben, let's start with the first one. Do you mind just reading the hypothesis and telling us why do you think it's important and why, what is the level of probability?
So the first hypothesis is that we believe
Not
that
sure if
aquarium
we can
owners
listen to you, Ruben. Are you muted? No.
And?
Yes,
Not
now
muted.
we can. Great.
Okay. So we believe that aquarium owners like an alternative to natural rock extracted from reefs. Well, this is really important to us because it's our main product that we are selling. However, we are afraid this being like not really easy to validate because there are some kind of offers in the market already in terms of alternative rock. It's not 100% alternate. It's not 100% artificial, but there are some kind of alternatives. So that's our first hypothesis that we have to test.
Yeah, it makes sense. As an hypothesis, of course, it makes lots of sense. So next one.
As for the second one, we we believe that aquarium stores are willing to retail an artificial solution to natural rock. So this is kind of important because we may be looking for a way to start in the business by doing like by having some kind of retailers. As for being invalid, we are not kind of sure if it's high or not because it really depends on what they are currently paying for the natural rock. Because we've already established contact with some aquarium stores and they are like, yeah, we want to use that, but our main concern is the price.
And do you have a price point?
Well, we have a price for our production, like a rough estimation of our production, and we'll say that when you compare our price of production with the retail price of the live rock, the natural rock, well, ours is way cheaper. But for them to have profit and for us to have profit, well, it's gonna be like neck and neck.
Okay, so the hypothesis, the next hypothesis after you validate this one, you should also include an hypothesis like this. So I believe that aquarium stores will pay this price, and I guess you guys sell this by the kilogram, or you sell this, I don't know,
by the kilogram.
By the kilogram, right? So, and how just as a reference, how much are you? You know, what would be an entry price level for your product?
Well, the price of the natural rock, it's like 10 euros the kilo.
Right.
I think that with all the profit having in count, we are looking at about 8 to 9 euros per hour, maybe.
Okay, so I believe that aquarium stores will pay 8 euros or 9 euros per kilogram for this solution, and the solution here, of course, is natural. An artificial alternative to natural rock, right? Yeah. So that's the hypothesis you should also be testing. Then testing price is always tricky because you get into this dilemma, which is you don't know what is the maximum price they're willing to pay. So usually what you should do is anchor the price at the maximum price that you think that they are willing to pay. And then you can always go down. It's much harder if you want to go up. So I believe that aquarium stores will pay 10 euro, so at least as much as for natural rocks for our artificial alternative to natural rock. So that's an hypothesis you should include. Do you mind just showing a couple more hypotheses before we go to the next team?
Okay, so now we believe that aquarium owners are willing to pay for an alternative to natural rock extract.
What I'm saying is you can substitute this one for pay at specific price point.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
So we have another one that deals with our suppliers that we believe that oyster culturists are willing to pay to get rid of oyster culture waste.
Okay, so actually, because we already spoke during the breakout rooms, what I suggest here is instead of oyster culturists are willing to pay, since you already know that they are willing to pay because they are already paying for landfills and companies to go there just to get rid of the oyster culture. Again, you need to know price point, and you know, for oyster culturists, getting rid of the oyster is pretty much a commodity. So in principle, they are going to see you as another alternative to their current landfill service. So they will probably be paying as much to you as to anyone else that goes there and takes the culture waste. But you need to know how much they are already paying to
Well,
the
there's a
land.
tricky part in here that there's a third, let's say, field involved. That's the feed field, the animal feed field, because the animal, well, at least at the oyster culturist that we work with, he says that they are willing to pay him €1 by the kilo of oyster shell to produce feed out of it. The catch is that for him to sell it to by €1 the kilo to the feed industry, he has to first wash the oysters, to give him some kind of treatment. He didn't specify what, but he told us that it would take his profit real.
Yeah.
It would make
But
it real.
you don't need that special treatment, do you?
No, we don't.
Of course. So in terms of the logistics involved for the oyster culture owners, it's the same as a landfill company that just goes there and takes it and treats it as waste, right? I think that's what you want to do. You want to understand what is the price point that they are paying already, and just understand if they will be willing to work with you. And here you might have other constraints that you don't see, but that is something that we are not foreseeing. And just another hypothesis before we move to the other group
is that we believe that aquarium owners are willing to pay to have a customized live rock in their aquarium.
Okay, are willing to pay to have customized live rock in their aquariums.
Well, we have a medium in the probability of being invalid, because we do know that, for example, let's say more wealthy people and let's say companies that have aquariums, that niche of people do pay, but the general public, they may not be as willing to pay for it.
Okay, so that's exactly what you should have in this hypothesis. You should define the customer segmentation here. So like you said, aquarium owners, it's a broad spectrum. It can be entry-level aquarium owners, people that have very small aquariums, very simple stuff, all the way to people, if you are Saddam Hussein, then you have an entire ocean just in your palace, right?
Yeah.
So that broad range of that spectrum of customers means that you need to define in the hypothesis card what is the customer segment that you are addressing. So we believe that aquarium owners, the high-range aquarium owners, entry-level aquarium owners, expert aquarium owners, whatever is the customer segmentation that you have in the aquarium owners market, which you know much better than I do. By the way, I roughly don't know anything about aquarium. Has an hobby. Are willing to pay to have customized live rock, and of course, some of those customer segments they are. What you want to know is whether entry-level customer segments are willing to pay if they have, again, an entry-level price.
Yeah.
And you have to introduce the entry-level price in this formulation. Otherwise, people are willing to pay. Yeah, right. How much? 5, 2 euros per kilogram, €1 per kilogram. What is the price point that you're going to introduce this alternative to live rock that is going to democratize the access to aquarium owners to this alternative, right? So that's what you want to know. What is the threshold and whether they are willing to do it. Okay, I think this is good. By the way, good job. I think you have very interesting formulations, but it has you guys understood. Sometimes you have to adjust and tweak the hypothesis so they are more incisive and they give you more value in terms of the testing of the hypothesis. Okay, let's go to another team. We have, I believe, just 4 or 5 minutes. Someone wants to show their. Okay, I see Jean-Pascal. So Jean-Pascal, do you want to show some of your hypotheses that you want to test?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So split the screen. Hope this is this one. Yeah, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, so we have split our clients, our customers in 4 parts. The first one is the givers, and that's the one who have some side stream, the biomass, and want to find some value and stop the expense to treat them. The second one is the takers, that's the one that can be interested by the product we will be able to make from these side streams. The third one is the authorities that have to face some problem, for example, red tide or green tide or invasive species like sargassum, for example. And the fourth one is equipment providers that can find an interest to collaborate with us. So we have made some hypotheses on these 4 segmentation. First hypothesis regarding the givers is that we believe that they have a second side streams that cost them. It's of course a high importance for us, and the probability of being invalid is very low because we have already tested it, and we know that it can be a huge economic problem for them.
Okay, so there is a reason why we call this exercise critical hypothesis, right? Is because you really want to test those that have a high chance or a high probability of being invalid. So if you already know stuff, if you already tested this, then those are not critical anymore. So the question is, what are the ones that you think have the highest probability of being invalid?
Okay, let's
so the one that we are seeing is low probability. Can you show us something that is high probability?
The second one is a high level of probability. We believe that they have a second side stream and that do not pay enough. And we believe that we can charge them quite a lot to take in charge these side streams and are part of a great part of.
When you talk about they, Jean-Pascal, who are you talking about?
Givers. It's written here in the hypothesis idea. Givers. Okay, so the one who have side streams and they are ready to pay a huge amount of money to be for that problem to be solved. Okay? Givers is for us is the one who will give us biomass to treat.
Okay, and usually who are those givers? What kind of industries?
All the seafood processors, for example.
Okay,
when you convert a fish in fillet, you will have rest raw material side stream, which is backbones, head, viscera, skins, and so on. And we will have to find a solution.
Great. So let's try to be as specific as possible here. I know sometimes when you guys are inside a team, everything is a given. You know who is the client, but if you're not, you won't know. So in this case, these are seafood industry operators. Okay, and what you're saying is that you believe that those companies, in this case, seafood operators, they have second side streams that do not pay enough. And what are the second side streams that you're talking about?
I told you it's a backbones, it's a viscera, it's a head, and it's not their market to convert them, so they want them to be taken away, and at that time they pay. In most of cases they have to pay this removal, and we believe that they can pay this price to us, and we take in charge this removal and convert them into useful product.
Okay, great. So it's a little bit like Ruben's case with the oyster producers. So let's say you believe that, for instance, oyster producers have a second side stream, which is the oyster shells. That
oyster is not really a good example. Mussel is a good example. For example, when you are a mussel producer, at least 1/3 of your production is below the commercial size. So it's considered as a side stream. And nowadays it's a problem because you are not allowed anymore to put them back into the sea. You have to find some users to that. So it's a huge market, notably in France, because we are a big country of mussel production, and no one knows what to do with this undersized mussel.
Okay, So why do you think this is there is a high probability of being invalid? Because it seems to be a quite straightforward problem according to what you're saying, because if nobody knows what to do with it and it's a third of their production, so whoever comes sharing.
They prefer, they don't care, at that time, they don't care if those mussel, for example, are landfilled or convert into I don't know, into low value product. And what is hard for us is to convince them that we can make some feed or food ingredient with those undersized mussel, but it will cost a little bit more to implement this technology.
Okay. Okay. So just 2 comments in regards to the importance. I would say this is critical. So it's even more important than what you put there, because this is the underlying foundation of your business model. You do need the suppliers and these givers, as you call them, in order to have the produce that is at the entry of the industrial process that you guys are going to develop or already developing. Okay, so thank you, Jean-Pascal, for your feedback. Let's move on to the rest of the presentation. So let me go back then to hypothesis testing theory and how to test hypotheses. So one of the ways you can do this is, of course, via interviews. And people sometimes they mistakenly assume interviews has a not very interesting way to get outcomes, but actually interviews, especially if you are doing B2B, are very, very powerful ways, and not just to validate or invalidate your hypothesis, but also to discover new hypotheses that you didn't even think about in the first place. Then you have surveys, you have Wizard of Oz, and don't worry, because I'll be giving examples of all of this. You can do AdWords, you can do landing pages, you can do A/B testing, you can do e-shops, tangible prototyping, crowdfunding platforms, digital prototyping, and so on and so forth. So we'll cover all this. So interviews, online surveys are, of course, the 2 ones that are most well known. And for interviews, is the good old speaking to people. Now, speaking to people in 2020 is a hard thing to do. But of course, people are still very willing to do video calls and to use technology to do this. So even if you cannot outreach to the factory, or if you cannot outreach to the person directly, you might do video calls like the ones we are doing here today. For that, online surveys, there's also a bunch of things that you can use, like Google Forms and Typeforms and SurveyMonkey, and they have their interest, especially if you are doing business to consumer, or if you want to have just a grasp of the size of the market. Paper prototyping, if you are developing apps or if you are developing any kind of interaction. Mock-up apps, of course, nowadays can be done very simply with apps like Marvel or Balsamiq, which you can download for free from your favorite app store, or even PowerPoint presentations. Product prototyping, in case you are developing a physical product, sometimes you don't need to actually develop the fully functional prototype. This is an example from an IDEO case where they did this contraption out of filter pens, and what they really wanted to show was, this is the final product. This is a medical device, started very humbly with this product prototyping in their ideation labs, ended up being a very successful medical device. Wizard of Oz is a way to simulate the product or service without actually building the automation or building the full service in a way that for the user, it feels like they're using the service in an automated way, but what is under the hood, of course, is human service, right? And you can, these two examples are just extreme cases. One of them is just an advertisement, I believe in either Germany or the Netherlands. Actually, it's in Germany. And the other one is just a joke. But you get the point. Videos are a great way to show value, are a great way to explain how a service will work. And there's like a bunch of tools that you can use nowadays, like powtoon.com and so on. Crowdfunding platforms. Now, crowdfunding platforms are a very interesting way to untap or to discover value for physical products. Giving you an example, this one is Glyph, is an iPhone tripod, but I can give you another example of a project that I have been involved with, which is an electrical skate. They did a kickstarting campaign and they were able to sell 20,000, sorry, not 20,000, but a couple of thousand electrical skates very, very quickly in just a couple of weeks, and to validate their market. These guys, the electrical skates company that I'm talking about, they have worked on prototyping their electrical skates for maybe 2 or 3 years. It's a premium skate. It's built out of pure steel sheets and with custom-made batteries. So it's, you know, it's the Rolls Royce of skates, of electrical skates. And when they came to me, they asked me, André, we want to do the Rolls Royce of skates, but we have no idea if someone is going to buy this. And we talked for a while. We had lunch maybe 2 years ago, and we decided, look, guys, you have to do a Kickstarter campaign, because it's like the only way people are actually going to pay for the product and validate whether this is something you should invest your time. And I'm actually very proud to tell you that they launched their Kickstarter campaign in August this year. And by the end of September, the Kickstarter campaign had been very successful. Another Kickstarter campaign that was started also by someone here very close to Fabrica, one of their founders, was a product for people that do cross skiing in the mountains, where, as you might have heard, there's no cell coverage. So if you get lost while doing cross skiing, it's quite a sad show, because you can get lost of your friends, you can get lost of your ski buddies, and then you cannot find them. So in this case, Karina, she developed a people finder, which is an electronics device that points you towards your buddies and your friends. She did a Kickstarter campaign. It was very successful. And that's really proof that this thing is working fine. Another example, of course, are e-shops. If you are in business to consumer market, this is something you can do. You can put it online, and landing pages, of course, are also a way to capture value. A/B testing is essentially a way to understand whether people prefer option A or option B. And when they prefer one of the options will give you a higher conversion, whether to a call or to a next stage in the funnel process, in the sales process. So you can optimize your sales cycle by doing A/B testing. Google Ads, it's also a nice way to understand if there is some latent demand for your product. So for instance, in this case of the aquarium, since they have a B2C component of the business, they are also targeting interest of aquarium owners. One of the ways to validate the hypothesis that you know, entry market aquarium owners are wanting to have natural artificial alternatives to natural rocks would be to do Google Ads. And whenever people search for natural rocks for aquarium, they pop up and they say, buy our artificial lookalike rocks. And if people actually are interested by that, that means that there is probably a market there to be explored. So this of course is another, is the continuation of the example that we started. And if you remember correctly, the example was, we believe, for the hypothesis, we believe people don't start their businesses because they don't know how to do. And it was on a value proposition, importance was mildly high, and probability of being invalid as well. So the test in this case was to test the hypothesis by going to do interviews using problem cards, the problem cards that have been handed over to you as well. We will ask people to choose 3 cards that represent their 3 main obstacles to create new business. And then you have cost and time. And cost is how much would that cost to do this test, and time is how much time this test would take. Metric, number of cards that refer don't know how to. And the metric is if, and the criteria would be if in 7 out of 10 interviews, people choose the card don't know how to, then this hypothesis will be validated. If it's less than 7, then the hypothesis will be either inconclusive or invalidated. So I would say if it's 7, it's validated. If it's like 3 or 2, it's definitely invalidated. But if it's a 5 or a 6, maybe it's inconclusive. Maybe you cannot still conclude. You need to do further testing or hypothesis. So you have some homework to do, which is to complete the hypothesis form that you started and complete the bottom of each form for each hypothesis that you already started working on. And if you do that, then you can, of course, have everything you need to do the hypothesis testing. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about market segmentation. But before that, let me ask you, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any doubts so far before we continue? No? All right, so let's do market segmentation. Market segmentation is important because it allows you to know your customers. So it allows you to know who are your most important customers, who influences them, who decides, who uses, which are the main characteristics of your customers or clients, and how can you group them into distinct segments that you can use to organize your business. So let's just see some examples. So market segmentation is basically a process of grouping customers in groups from an undifferentiated population who have similar problems or needs. So we were speaking about aquarium owners. So aquarium owners are all the people, all the markets for aquarium owners. So it's you know, hundreds of millions of people, right? All over the world are aquarium owners. I was aquarium owner myself, a very sad one because all my little fish die really, really fast. So I was a very lousy aquarium owner. I was at the very bottom of this market, right? But let's see, who are aquarium owners? So to do that, you need to do segmentation, and segmentation has several benefits because it allows you to improve your understanding of the client needs and desires, to distribute marketing investments in a more efficient way, to develop innovative products and services, to define more precise marketing strategies and campaigns. The first kind of segmentation that you probably can do is B2B or B2C. I think this is quite familiar to pretty much everyone here, but it's never too much to talk about it because those two segments, they need to be treated very, very differently. So B2B is when a company is selling its product or services to other companies, and B2C is when a company is selling its products or services to individual consumers. So again, The example of the aquarium owners, they would be the B2C part of the market, and the oyster producers, they would be the B2B part of the business. And most business, they have a business-to-business part and they have a business-to-consumer part. So what kind of segmentation can you use to B2C? Well, for B2C, you can use geography, you can use demography, you can use psychography, behavior, benefits, and so on. Or you can even use a matrix of all this. So in geography, you can use countries, for instance. In demography, you can use age or gender. In psychography, you can use the lifestyle, the values, the personality. In behavior, you can use the client's attitudes and products usage. And benefits, you can think about their time or money economy, aggregated services that is included, and so on. Examples of criteria for demographic can go all the way from age, salary, status, education, family size. Psychographics can be preferred brands, price sensibility, and keep in mind not everything is relevant when you're going to do segmentation. Depending on your business, on your industry, some of these things are more relevant than others. For instance, life cycle. Usually it is divided into born all the way to retirement, in this case for the banking industry. And needs are essentially, according to the Maslow pyramid of needs, can be divided in 5. So you can think of needs as in physiological needs like breathing and food and water and sex and so on, and sleeping. In safety, those are the needs of security of body and employment, love and belonging, friendship and family, esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, and then what we call self-actualization, which is morality, creativity, spontaneity. This is particularly important for B2C businesses. So for instance, if you are in the fashion retail business, you are essentially doing business towards satisfying love, esteem, and self-actualization, right? So you are working in pretty high levels of needs. If you are in an industry which is, let's say, the guys from the water, the isotonic water reflex, you could say, oh, it's water, so it's physiological. Well, it is, but what they are actually trying to do with this specific products that they are selling is not just a physiological need. Otherwise, people just drink water, right? They want also to provide some sense of belonging, maybe, because it's about, friendship, is about drinking a product that my buddies in my paddle team also drink, and so on and so forth. Banking sector. This is, of course, a good example that you might relate to, which is the segmentation that traditional banking does of their customers. So in this case, this is an actual example from the How Lloyd's banking group nailed customer segmentation. And for Lloyd's, they see their segments in this matrix of 12 customer segments. They have what they call the still at home, which are relative well-off kids living with their parents. They have what they call the starting out, which are young single flat sharers. They have low savings. They are likely to borrow. Then they have the rising metropolitans, which live in major cities. They have at least 10K pounds in savings. Then you have what we call the poorer parents, which are single parents and with children. 50% live in social housing. They have what then they call the working single couples, family owning, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to give you all the examples, but this is just for you to understand that there is a wide range of personas and customer segments for in this case for Lloyd's. Examples of criteria for B2B. So this is for B2B now. So business that sell to other business. So you can still use demographics, but in demographics in business means what's their sales volume, what's the number of employees of their companies, what kind of industry are they working for on, what is the number of locations they have, which regions of the world are they working in, EMEA, Latin America, whatever it is. And then psychographic is whether that company has lots of change aversion, it's a very traditionalistic company, whether it's a company which is very technological, whether it's a very professional company or a company that is not properly known for being the most professional one. And then inside the company, the sales process, you'll find several types of intervenients. And here is really where it starts, the art of the sale and the art of doing, well, after you do customer development, you need to then to actually do the sales process. But the idea of this slide is that you really understand that even inside the company, you have different types of intervenients. Usually you have the decision maker, you have the buyer, the influencer, the user, and the saboteur, and you need to navigate through this intervenience in order to achieve your ultimate goal of doing the B2B sales. Now, we're going to talk about personas, which is arguably another marketing concept for you to develop further your market segmentation. But before we do that, let me ask if anyone has any questions regarding customer segmentation so far, either B2B or B2C or anything in between. No? All right, so let's move on to personas. Anyone familiar with the personas concept before we move on? Just a quick show of hands. Okay, we have like 3 or 4 people familiar with it. So personas are the most realistic representation of the main characteristics of our clients. And we usually recommend the creation of at least one persona for each customer segment, especially if you're doing B2C or you have a B2C aspect to it. So in this case, we're going to use a similar canvas to the hypothesis one, but this is the personas canvas. Keep in mind, it has 2 pages, so 1 and 2. And for the personas, this is an example of one of these sheets filled in manually. And the exercise that I'm going to ask you guys to do is for each team to draw at least one persona, which is a representative of each customer segment. So again, we have here an example. And this example is a guy called John Smith, is 28, is an Uber driver, has an occupation, is doing around 17K per year. His family situation is single, is actually a bachelor degree, has an education, and then you have several aspects to this persona. And sometimes people find personas a little bit convoluted. They say, oh, why should I care about his profile and biography and his life story? Well, because the more you know about your client, the bigger the chances you can perform to that client. You can serve that client, right? So in this case, the story is he studied sports, but he had an injury, ended up becoming an Uber driver. He likes to talk and interact with people. In his spare time, he continues to practice sports and outdoor activities. He's always aware of new technologies and social networks and lives with friends. Main goals: he wants to save money to buy an electric car. He also wants to travel to nature destinations. He cares about the environment and social causes. He also wants to volunteer. Problems and challenges. And here is really where it starts to get interesting, because when you get to the problems and challenges, you start to empathize with this persona and understand what are his problems and his challenges in his lives in regards, of course, to your product, to your service, okay? So in this case, it doesn't know how to be more helpful, nor how to contribute more to reduce pollution and stop global warming. He listens to the radio and he's concerned about the environment. Current solution, he sometimes volunteers in the animal shelter and he always recycles at home. In the supermarket, he tries to choose national and organic products. And I guess he tries to do that exactly to save the environment and to be more CO2 neutral. And then you have some personality traits. You are free to change those personality traits or ignore those personality traits if you don't think they are too relevant for your business or your service. And then you have some motivations. Here motivations I think are more important, because in terms of motivations, you need to understand whether this person is very motivated about cost, is very or less motivated about convenience, about quality, about design, about social aspects. And then finally, what are the favorite channels of this persona? And again, favorite channels of this persona are not just a dump of every single social network you know. What you really want to do here is to understand what are the channels that this persona uses the most in his daily life. So in this case, it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Messenger, and WhatsApp. So you really need to know whether he's a heavy Twitter user, heavy Facebook groups user, and so on. Because if he's not, and you're just dumping every social network that you know, this has no effect whatsoever in terms of the strategy that you're going to craft in tailoring the specific channels that this persona uses. And then you can add some extra notes about this persona if you want to. So the assignment here, and I'll just ask here the production team to zoom out a little bit if you mind, is to complete until the next bootcamp a selection of the top 10 critical hypotheses and define the testing methods, and then link those hypotheses with your business model canvas using the interactive tool available at the FabStart Academy that you are already familiar with, and then consolidate market segments and personas. That means that you might want to create those personas as part of the assignment of this deck here today, and prepare for the working hours. Those working hours are going to be with me next Monday from 3 to 5 p.m. West. So that's 4 to 6 p.m. CST. And do your homework and lessons learned for the next session so it's productive. And start doing the mentorship sessions that you can also book via the Upframe platform, if I'm not, if I'm correct. What else can I tell you? I can also tell you a huge thank you, and that we still have 10 minutes for Q&A or anything else that you want to go through before the session is over. So handing over the mic to you guys. Any questions?
Yes, can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the persona, is that the same as an avatar?
Yeah, I mean, some people have been calling this avatars. The marketing name that is more well known usually is personas, right?
Okay, and is it a hypothetical person that we're creating?
It should be, as much as possible, an hypothetical person. Of course, that hypothetical person is a stereotype of one person or more people that you know that tend to be that person, right? So in your case, and let's see, Red Rose Developments, range of seaweed by combining. Do you have a B2C? Do you have a B2C aspect to your business?
Not really, no.
Not really, right? So in B2B businesses, persona is also viable because, you know, those people here are all the intervenients of the B2B cycle, of sales cycle. They are also people, right? The saboteur is someone, the user is someone, the influencer is someone, and so on. So what I suggest is that you think about who's going to be the decision maker for my products when I approach you know, when I approach my buyers, who do you think it's going to be the decision maker inside the company?
Okay.
But this is actually a question. So,
all right.
what companies are you targeting to?
The first phase of targeting would be people working in the agricultural. So they'd be using plant biostimulant and fertilizer.
Right.
So, and I would rely on Vincent's expertise to create a profile because he works in that sector. He would have a better understanding of the profile.
So just for me to understand a little bit better. So when you're talking about buyers in that, are you talking about farmers, for instance?
Yes, yes, it would
Okay.
be.
So let's say this is a fairly big, so let's just go and use your example here for examples of criteria on B2B, okay?
Okay.
And let's do this together for your case, because I think it will get easier for lots of the other groups that also have B2B market segmentation. So demographics, in terms of sales volume, maybe not so important, but let's say think of number of employees. You're probably, I would say that you would be probably targeting medium-sized, at least medium-sized farms, which have at least a number of employees. So they are medium-sized companies. They might have even a number of locations, not just one plot of land, but several plots of land. And they served markets here are of course important. So you need to define what kind of produce, what kind of agricultural, you know, products they are, you know, producing. And of course the products and services, because it's agricultural products. And then the position and experience. And inside the farm, like any other company, especially if it's big enough. So I'm thinking here in Portugal, there is one farm which is fairly well known, which is Vita Cres, and they have been producing fresh vegetables in the south of Portugal for the last 20 or so years. It was actually founded by a British guy, and he now is now one of the biggest agricultural companies here in Portugal. They produce lettuce, they produce all kinds of fresh vegetables that grow close to the soil. So anything that is not a tree. And you know, by all means, I'm not an agricultural expert. So what I'm trying to say for this guy is the decision maker, and they actually have a fairly big sized company, so they have hundreds of employees, and of course you're not targeting to the farm to the farmer on the field. You're targeting to the 20, maybe 40 people that work in the offices that will be able to be decision makers, buyers, and influencers. So I would say in this case for Vita Cres, the decision maker for your product is maybe the chief agronomist, right? The chief agronomist inside the company. The buyer might be the CFO or whoever is managing the production. Maybe it's not even the CFO, it's going to be the production expert, someone that is optimizing production costs and making sure that they produce lettuces at the cheapest price possible. The influencer might be, they actually have a chief scientific officer. To be honest, I think they actually have a chief technology officer, like a startup. So the influencer here might be the CTO, because the CTO is not really the agronomist, but the CTO is more tech savvy. So maybe you can outreach to the CTO via one of the startup channels, via the foundation, or via the Gulbenkian. So it's going to be your friend inside the company, right? You need a friend inside the company. The user is not going to be any one of these guys. The user is going to be the facility experts, or whoever is going to deploy the seaweeds fertilizer in the fields and make sure that it's being properly used. And the saboteur tends to be whoever is making money with the product that you're going to substitute, right? Because if you're going to go for seaweed methods, then it means that the traditional fertilizers are going to be substituted, at least to a certain extent. And whoever is holding the relationship with the current provider is going to be very, very, you know, not very happy, to say the least, with that solution. So, of course, here the way is to how to circumvent the saboteur, or even make the saboteur not be a saboteur. So to turn around the saboteur. So with that good example, I don't know if this addresses your question, or it makes it easier to understand.
It does, but so far I've now got what, 5 avatars or personas.
Yeah, I mean, you could have 5.
Just for that category.
Yeah, exactly.
I would,
Pierre. You're muted now.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest, before drilling down into identifying all the key players within any sort of business entity, just limiting your target business entities to the ones that would be, I would prioritize to the ones that are most receptive of a phytohormone from the liquid extract of seaweed that has been, you know, scientifically proven through some research articles to directly increase the yield of a particular plant. So there's not much data out there for all the plants, but you know, there's some terrestrial crops have been shown to be very high yielding on these hormones, these stimulants, and just focusing on the ones that have already been published on makes it a lot more credible when you approach these targeted farms, if you will. If you have no data supporting that it helps apples, but you have data that shows that it supports this other crop, maybe it's lettuce, then you go with that. And you know, these phytonutrients, they can be applied as a foliar spray, right? Or they could be applied as a soil amendment. So there's different applications for the same product, and you're going to be you're going to get a lot more reception from a farm that's already had some history with these sorts of applications. And so you want to really be focused on on particular farms, and not just you know, cold call all the farms in the world, you know, and try to sell them on your product. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very, very nice remark. When you are starting, you have to be laser focused, and you have to be very, very aware of the resources you're going to spend to do this. So being smart, like Pierre was just suggesting, and focusing in the highest chance, the low-hanging fruit is what you want to do. Otherwise, it's very, very easy to, you know, to diverge and not being able to actually, you know,
But I think that's getting into market strategy and approach. At the moment, it's just creating the avatars.
Yeah,
so
at
that
the
we've
moment,
got
it's creating the avatars. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else before we close the session today? All right, so guys, it was really nice to have you. This was Bootcamp 2, Customer Segments and Interviews. We'll have office hours Monday, 3 p.m. local time. Hope to see you guys there. Do your homework, because it will make the session much, much more productive for you guys in order to advance and do the rest, the next bootcamp, which will be next week on Tuesday. Exactly. Also with me, by the way. All right. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.